begin. George F. Will, a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist and a PhD in politics, said in December of 2010 that, quote, the administration's ardor for ratification of New START is understandable, as is Russia's. The president needs success somewhere. Russia needs psychotherapy. It longs to be treated as what it no longer is, a superpower. New START pertains primarily to the numbers. It requires the reduction of strategic nuclear weapons and launchers. Russia's economic anemia is forcing it already into arms reductions, so that it would already be below the levels of the treaty. So today I would be simply responding to the negative team's arguments, showing you that they really do not stand as a significant reason to keep the START treaty in place. Essentially, they have not addressed the real-world, tangible impact of missile defense is hampered in two main ways. We cannot have effective missile defense systems, and the BCC can even further limit our missile defense systems. They also have not addressed the issue that further treaties we make with Russia will simply be more conceding to Russia. So I'm going to be looking at two main voting issues today. First of all, a missile defense hampered, and second of all, unequal relationships. So first, let's talk about missile defense hampered. Now, essentially in the order of our justifications. The first point under this was about verification, and they said verification is very important and all that, and it's better than no verification. My first response is let's look at my 2AC evidence that's essentially said we can only review 5 sites that are old, and we already know what's going on there. We don't really know what new developments Russia is doing. It's worse than no verification because it makes us think we know what's going on in Russia's nuclear arsenal when we don't. Second of all, I'm actually going to have, that's my main response. That's what my second response. They never responded to this. This evidence stands clear. Now let's move on to missile defense. Essentially they said, well, it's not legally binding, so therefore it's not a problem. My first response is let's look back to my 2AC evidence, my intro, where I talked about how 30 individuals, including negotiators from the old START treaty, arms experts, ambassadors to Soviet states, all stated that this would be folly to limit our missile defense in such a way when offensive threats emerge. It would be completely and utterly folly to do this. My second response is that in our 1AC we read the treaty text that says it limits missile defense. This is what it says. Paragraph 3 of Article 5 prohibits the conversion of offensive missile launchers to launchers of defensive interceptors. And we went on to read cards analyzing that, saying essentially Vice President Biden has proposed plans for weak missile defense that cannot outpace current threats, as our evidence stated. And my fourth point is that the bilateral consultative commission was never addressed ever once by the negative team. It is a reason in itself to vote affirmative, to get rid of this commission that can simply further limit our missile defense for 10 years when North Korea and Iran's arsenal is certainly not going to be limited in that time. Now let's move on to relations. Now first of all, let's look at about the extraordinary events. They said it would be bad if we withdrew in this way, and they talked about START 2 and how Russia never signed it. But let's look at actually what START 2 did. This is from the Arms Control Association in 2002. They said, talked about the ABM treaty. They said Russia announced the next day it would no longer be bound by START 2 offensive arms reduction treaty. That move, however, was largely symbolic, given START 2 never even entered into force because we did not enter into it, and that was effectively superseded by the Strategic Offensive Reductions Treaty. So we passed another treaty immediately after we withdrew from the ABM treaty called the Strategic Offensive Reductions Treaty. START 2 was just as symbolic, something that didn't really matter in real world. Again, and so this is my second response. There's no tangible impacts. Just a symbolic move by Russia is not a reason to hamper our missile defenses so significantly and can't outpace current threats. My third response is that they ignored our second justification. It's simply saying that if we further relations with Russia, further cooperation with them, keep our political capital in place or whatever, they haven't shown how further cooperation will be beneficial. Our second justification states how cooperation with Russia will just be another United States concession after concession after concession, where we do not get any benefits ourselves. We just cooperate with them for the sake of cooperating, and in turn throw our missile defenses out the window in the process. We cannot ignore this blatant threat to national security. They also, last point, they talked about how Europe was mad when we withdrew from other treaties. They were mad when we withdrew from the Kyoto Protocol, which doesn't have an exit clause like New START. New Start limits our missile defenses, which we have said over and over again. Evidence proves the negative team has not proved the tangible effects of bad relations. We have to withdraw from New Start. Thank you.